Okay, hi everyone, welcome back. And in this update, we are going to check out Polygon's price chart and I'm going to try to explain what might be the next likely move. And I'm going to tell you why I'm actually treating the coming moves in Polygon as like a fantastic buying opportunity. But before we get into all that, as per usual, we are going to remind ourselves for why we are so optimistic in Polygon, and we do think that by the end of this cycle, we are going to witness hopefully some massive waves of price appreciation. So let's dive in and see what is going on. And in case you are not really active on Twitter, Polygon recently actually has been getting some really serious attention, and two things in particular, in my view, actually stand out in here that we are going to talk about them in today's update. One is all about future institutional adoption, and the other shows what is happening right now on the network. And when you put these things together, you actually get a picture that's honestly, in my view at least, pretty strong for the long term. So first things first, let's talk about the ARK news from India. And in case you don't know, this is actually a rupee-pegged digital asset that is supposed to roll out in 2026. And the interesting part in here is that it's actually being built completely on Polygon. And this isn't some random stablecoin project. No, this thing is backed by government securities, and the whole system is designed around India's CBDC. And that, my friends, means that Polygon isn't just being used for normal crypto stuff anymore. No, it is basically becoming part of, although be it maybe like a very small part of, the financial stack for one of the largest economies on the planet, which is awesome. Also, there's actually the technical side in here, and you need to pay full attention to it, because ARK in here actually uses a twin rupee setup where the CBDC in this scenario handles settlement and ARK actually handles programmable finance. So we are actually talking about automated payments, maybe corporate transactions, and things like, for instance, maybe supply chain financing. Basically, we are talking about financial operations that need regulation and scale big time. And since ARK uses Uniswap v4 hooks under the hood, well, this actually brings the automation of DeFi into regulated environments. And that is kind of a pretty unique position for Polygon, because it puts them right in the middle of the future institutional and also government level finance. So overall, in my view, this is definitely some serious positive news that is going to bring more and more activity to the chain for the future. Specifically, we talked about 2026, and not a lot of people at the moment are paying attention to these types of news, and I fully get it. They are actually falling down. They don't really want to listen, but if you want to make serious money, you actually need to pay attention to these types of news when the price is going down, okay? Those are real opportunities for you to make a whole lot of money. So overall, definitely positive news. Now, let's switch over to what is actually happening right here, right now, because some people are actually noticing that Polygon PoS transactions are up around 110% this year, and the network just hit about, I believe this is 6 million daily transactions. And well, that's actually like a big number. And more importantly, in my view, this is actually the result of very much real usage. And it's very important to understand that this comes from a couple of things, like, for example, maybe gaming apps, NFT activities. Well, actually, probably I'm going to say not a whole lot of NFT activities, definitely more and more stablecoin transfers, and also DeFi protocols. So the growing in here is not random. No, it is very much steady, and it's just, again, not a simple spike. It looks actually more like, again, a very much a steady demand. And from my POV, this actually proves that the network can handle very much heavy traffic. And if Polygon, for example, is going to support national scale systems like ARK, well, it needs to be efficient and stable. And hitting these types of numbers in terms of transactions, well, I think definitely shows that Polygon is already capable of running at quite a bit of a massive scale. Also, this is my last point. I promise you we are going to go soon on the live chart. But before that, there's also the value side of all this to pay attention to, because when you have millions of transactions a day, well, you automatically create continuous demand for the network token, because every single action in here, for those of you who are new to the blockchain space, every single action actually requires something called gas, which is paid by the native token itself. So instead of the price relying on the market speculation, you actually in this scenario in Polygon start getting value driven by real activity, which is what we love to see. So in conclusion, when you put everything together, I think you can immediately realize that Polygon, according at least to these news, has two very important strong pillars. Number one is going to be obviously long-term institutional growth from the ARC project, and number two is going to be real organic usage happening right here, right now on the POS chain. And these two trends definitely support each other. And based on these types of progress, I think it makes perfect sense to expect a stronger price performance in the long run. And if in like very short term, you are seeing a decent move on the downside, well, based on the fundamentals that we are talking about in every single update, I think we should just treat these moves on the downside as just beautiful buy opportunities. And I'm not saying that Polygon is going to go up immediately from the current point. No, I actually do think in like very short term, we may have like one more move on the downside. But again, that's not really the point, because I don't really view this chart as like a short-term trade opportunity. No, in my view, this chart looks fantastic for the mid to long term, because in that period of time, I do actually expect massive price appreciations for the token. Now, this is POLUSD chart, which if I just go on maybe H4 time frame, what is going on with my internet today? I don't know what is happening. There we go. If you go on H4 time frame, you immediately realize that we don't really have a whole lot of data, but no problem at all. You see, pay attention to this move on the downside, and the lows in here is somewhere around, let's say, 12.5 cents. Now, let's go on Matic USD chart from trading view, because in here we actually, as you can see, if I just go even on daily time frame, we do have quite a bit of data. And also I just copied the recent move on the downside in Polygon, since we don't really have it on Matic USD chart in here. So now you get the whole picture. Now, why do I care about this? Because this is giving you the long-term scenario, and in my view overall in Polygon, this is a wave 1 followed by a correction for wave 2, and then beautiful 1 2 3 4 5 wave impulse on the upside into our wave 3. And I do still believe, despite the recent move down, that the current move is just a correction structure into our wave 4, meaning what's next? You know it, another great move on the upside into wave 5. Now, here's a question. Can we argue all of this move into wave 5, which at bare minimum we are going to set an all-time high and take the highest high somewhere around, let's say, $3 region, is going to happen by the end of this cycle? Do not get me wrong, you can argue that, but here is what I do like to suggest. I think you should just right now at least manage your expectations, and maybe expect a wave 1 to happen by the end of this cycle, followed by a long-term absolutely annoying consolidation pattern into our wave 2 in the next bear market, and then you can have beautiful move up into wave 3 4 5, which in these moves maybe in the next bull runs we are going to set an all-time high. But for now, I think we should just focus on this massive move on the upside, hopefully soon coming in Polygon, because even if you want to get this thing, the targets are going to be amazing. And I fully believe that in Polygon we can easily actually take like these important highs in here, about $8. Now, let's say I'm buying Polygon right now around the 12 cents area, and what is going to be my stop loss? Even if I want to be like extremely conservative, I'm gonna say let's actually put our stop, since I don't really think we're gonna go there, somewhere under 1 cent region. So essentially I'm having, let's say, just to have some round numbers, maybe a 10 cents stop loss. On the other hand, what's my target? I think somewhere around $8 can be a likely target. So I'm having essentially a 90 cents target, but on the other hand, a 10 cents stop loss, meaning what? My risk to reward ratio is about 1 to 9, which is awesome. And also, since fundamental wise in Polygon, I do believe that every single thing actually looks quite bullish and optimistic in the future, well, makes sense to expect for the token to also see some big waves of price appreciation in the mid to long term. Okay, in like very short term, the story might be very much different. And here is another important point. You see, in my view, there's actually a decent bit of support in here between 8 cents to about, I think it was 11 cents area, and I do have kind of a hard time believing that Polygon is just going to go down and break this important level. Let's just stretch this one a bit more. As you can see, recently we got to this level, but I don't really mind if we end up having maybe like one more move on the downside, and then I do expect a very strong bounce. I think Polygon by the end of this cycle is actually going to see a massive explosion, and I do think that your patience is actually going to be rewarded big time. And if I just go on the live chart, here is my final point and why I think in like very short time we may see a bit of a move on the downside. You see, I think this last leg down in Polygon is probably going to be in form of a 5-wave impulsive structure. And if I just go on maybe H4, there we go. So this is a triangle. We talked about this when we were writing here so many times, and pay attention. I think this can be wave 1, correction for wave 2, another move down into wave 3, correction for 4, and what's next? Maybe another move on the downside into our wave 5. And if I just go on maybe 15-minute time frame, I mean, come on, this is like a little bit too easy because we are just having a couple of very important lows quite close together, and I am willing to bet that most likely a lot of traders, a lot of stupid traders for that matter, opened some long positions in here, and they do have their stops under the lows. So the price actually has a tendency to, in most cases, go down and gather all the liquidity and maybe even take the lowest low in here about 12.7 cents, and then have a massive bounce back in order to start the very move that those stupid traders already expected. But unfortunately, they're not going to be in the market anymore. They are going to get completely wiped out. This, my friends, unfortunately is how the market works. So in case you are not a seasoned trader, I would like to suggest stay maybe 10 to 20 miles away from trading crypto. But if you're, you know what, more power to you. If you're not, and if you honestly don't care about trading, I think you should do your due diligence, come up with your own conclusion about the fundamental of your project. And then if you thought then, okay, yeah, you know what, this is actually a great project with solid fundamentals, fair enough, you can just accumulate around the lows, and your name of the game should be DCA, dollar cost averaging. And guess what? That's exactly what I'm doing to the T around the lows in Polygon. I'm just buying at the moment quite a lot of Polygon actually, because I do think this downtrend hopefully soon going to come to an end. And I hope I explained everything well and you understood what is going on in Polygon's price chart. And until the next update, I hope you have a wonderful time. Goodbye.